There we go. So, hi, I am Tenacious Earl, and I'm going to be trying to do an intro and quick description of how I would set up a game of APBA Soccer, which I just acquired within the last month. Been playing a few games. I kind of feel like I'm ready to maybe roll this out a little bit here on the channel. There are other videos out there of this game. I'm not saying that mine is any more important or special or better of a description than anybody else's, but I do have some things that I feel like I've tried to work out a little bit. It's a game that, depending on how you record the events of the game, what your propensity is for being meticulous with stat keeping and event tracking, or whether you decide that you're going to cut back some. It can take anywhere from I would say an hour, which is kind of the low water mark that I'm at right now, as far as, and that's with somewhat, I don't want to say minimal stats, but I'm not taking as many stats as I was early on. Up to maybe 2 hours if you really are interested in tracking which players get the ball, complete passes. I mean, I think you could probably model some of that. Whether it's accurate in that regard or not, I can't speak to that at the moment, and I'm probably not going to be in a position where I'm going to be modeling it. So, where do we start? Soccer is a sport that is extremely popular around the world and is somewhat popular in America. It doesn't get the attention of as many sports fans as it could, because we have a lot of sports in this country that are higher levels of excitement and action in terms of the way the game is played, the tempo of the game. I liken soccer to a symphony orchestra, whereas where the teams would be the orchestra, the game itself would be the music that is generated by those instruments and players. Whereas you're going to get a rock concert out of your American football. Obviously, soccer in the rest of the world is known as football. American football, the NFL, college football, etc., etc. Basketball, hockey, that's all adrenaline. Baseball, maybe a little less so, but we could put that into maybe the country music. I don't know, since it's the national pastime. But and there's plenty of rock musicians that are out there that are international, come from Great Britain and whatnot. So when it comes right down to it, this game is going to be popular for some. Some people don't necessarily understand what it's all about. Some people, so in soccer, you can get ties. It's actually, I would say, decently common to end up in a tie. You can get scoreless draws. Goals are at a premium, much like hockey, although I think hockey goes through its spurts where there are goals scored. But in soccer, I think it is much more common to end up with a game that is dominated in the midfield with a wide array of typical chances. Recently, I've been playing a couple of bottom table teams in so I received the most recent Premier League set, the 2017-2018 set, which ended in May of this year. And I played Swansea City and Stoke City, and I played 2 games in a row with them, and they were both 0-0 draws. I used the same lineups for each. Now, I didn't go in and actually look to see who the preferred players were. I just basically set it up from my knowledge and just sort of assessing the player cards and trying to decide who I thought would be best. But all in all, it's a game that you need to kind of understand. And we're going to be playing some games here on the channel. You have to understand that there's a rhythm to soccer. There is a you're not going to have a shot every minute. You could actually go 10 minutes without a shot. You could go half an hour sometimes without a shot, or a shot on goal. You could go a half. I've actually, in this other game, I had one of the teams not even get a shot on goal. That was Swansea City. It's just the way it goes. But it really, I believe, I fell in love with it during the 2010 World Cup, and I think it really makes you appreciate the action moments when you have these moments where it's just a little bit more back and forth, a little bit of tete-a-tete. So there are some tactics in this game, not too many, but we'll go through it here. But first, I want to just go through the setup, because I think the setup is the first part, and I'd like to try and break any tutorial stuff into maybe 30-minute segments, but knowing the way I talk, it might be longer. So I will flip this around. Now, what I'm going to end up showing you are some adaptations that I've made, but all in all, I will start with my personal. So this is an adaptation of the charts that I have seen around. I'll try and zoom it in the best I can here. So basically, I played plenty where I used a chart which, let me see if I can grab one out of here. I've got my cards on top of it, so it really doesn't want to come out. This was the chart that I came up with before that has a lot of event tracking. I got to the point where I cut down on my columns for the event tracking, especially for passes, and I wanted to just put in a little notation, and it was going to be a Z in the first, so like Z1 would go in the first shot event or foul event or card or whatever. But it just turned out that this was a little bit too cumbersome. So I decided that whatever my project is going to be, what I really care about are the statistics. I also do, at least for the moment, enjoy tracking the possession type stats. And so that's what we have up here. It's also a way to track the time that goes by. But so let's just go through. There's room on this to put the league, whatever you want to call your league, the date, whether it's the date you're playing it or the date of the virtual game, and the match day. If you're playing in a league, you probably want to know which match day it is. The venue, stadium, whatever you want to call it, and city. Over here we've got a place for home and away, soccer, and I'm going to be this way. I don't know about y'all, but in soccer I put the home team first. Depending on your home team, if you like Major League Soccer, the local regional sports network may put the home team second, which is not really consistent with the sport standard, but that's that's the American sports version of things, and if that's what they do, then that's what they do. But home would be first, away second, is in terms of the score sheet. You have place to put your record, place in the league. I think those things are kind of important. Okay, so now, and I didn't, well, I guess I did print them out somewhat, but I need to get them, I need to find them in my box here. Bear with me for a moment. Preparation is king, and guess what? I haven't prepared nearly enough, but I'm sure you all have been here. Here we go. So you'll see some spaces right at the top that say TR, TD, and CL. So these numbers you can find on the APBA website. Under download, it's there's some charts. So what I'm going to set up here is I'm going to set up a game between Manchester United, and I'm going to use the 2016-17 set because, well, I'll do another video another time explaining why. But Manchester United against West Ham United. So Manchester United, obviously in Manchester, West Ham in London. They play in the former Olympic Stadium from a few years ago. So we've got So anyway, the TR is the team rating. The TD is team defense, and the CP, or I put CL, but clutch points are all listed here, and it's variable based on home or away form. So and this also, when you download this and print it out, or just download it, it gives you a list of all of the players. It also gives you an idea of who they would. So in this case, Manchester United, they would recommend that your first penalty kick taker would be Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who now plays for the LA Galaxy. Or Wayne Rooney would be the second one. Although I thought Rooney was with Everton, but maybe he came over for the beginning part of the 2017 season. So anyway, so what we would do, let's just start filling it in here. I'm just going to put friendlies, because that's what my league is at this point. I'm just playing friendlies, and I'm going to put today's match day. It's going to be August 11. And I'm not going to worry about match day. This is going to be at Old Trafford. And that's in Manchester, Greater Manchester, UK. All right, so we'll put Manchester. And suffice it to say, neither of these teams are my favorite. I really don't have a favorite Premier League team, but definitely not Manchester United. But anybody who's followed me on Twitter for years would know that for a fact. Record in place, we really don't have one. So now we get to these or team rating, team defense, and clutch points. So Manchester United will be at home. Their team rating will be a 3, team defense a 4, and clutch points will be 7. So they're relatively clutch. Now West Ham United away, they're going to have a team rating of 2, team defense 2, and clutch points 4. So not quite as proficient. So I'll just give a quick explanation of what these things are. So your team rating factors into when there's a loose ball. The difference is going to give a we would roll 2 dice, and it would give a distribution of Manchester United in this case would have a slight advantage in terms of loose balls, being able to pick it up. It's how the game decides a lot of 50-50 balls, if you will. If you're familiar with soccer, you'll know what a 50-50 ball is, or basically where the play is going to end up. Who's going to dominate the play. The higher the difference in the team rating, and what I can show you here is I have an adapted chart from the big book, which is huge and a little cumbersome, but I've kind of boiled it down into one page for me. So like in this case, we would use column 1 where the difference is 1, and then based on the roles here, higher rated team in this case would get an extra 3 from when there's no difference. So you see that here it's a 50-50 shot when there's no change. The 50-50 ball is truly a 50-50, whereas with 1, it ends up being a little skewed towards Manchester United. They'd be the higher rated team. And then if you get up to where there's a difference of 4, the higher rated team earns all of those. So that's when you really have a dominant team against a back marker. Now the team defense, where that comes in, is there's a defensive chart. There's a number of chances, and so then the team's defensive rating plays into how proficient they are in being able to grab a ball. When they try to make a defensive play, whether or not they're able to control it, or whether it's going to be sent into a 50-50 chance on that loose ball chart. So, well, I just moved this out of the way. Let's keep going here. So on this sheet, we've got a 1 and a 2 for the periods. We got an extra time period if you're playing in a cup game, and then the final score. This is all let me pull it up here. This is all for tracking possession or timing or both, whatever you want. So I will go through the gameplay in another video, but each of these little half ticks is a half a minute, so 30 seconds. And so I have time here all the way up to 45 minutes plus 2 added time. There are no clock stoppages in soccer. They just add time to the end, and we got play space for 5 minutes of extra here. I've adapted my score sheet a little bit recently. Home and away, you can put your starting formation here. There are charts that basically take whatever one team's formation is and stacks it up against the other team's formation in defense. And that's when you roll the dice on the player's cards. That's how it's resolved, is based on the tactical changes. So, or the tactical, there are changes to each of the chart based on how the tactics would work out. Based on, you only get 3 tactics you can choose from: a 4-3-3, which is a relatively fluid offensive tactic; a 4-4-2, which is a little bit more of a traditional, maybe slightly more long ball, maybe a little narrower formation, although that's not necessarily what it always is. It can be that way. And then a 4-5-1, which is a much less offensive tactic. 5 midfielders. You're really trying to choke down on the other team and play defense and not let them get chances. So typically the 4-5-1 is going to be played by a team that may be the team that's has less proficiency on offense. They may be trying to accommodate the fact that they aren't very good with the ball. So let's get down to team selection, because we are almost 20 minutes into this and I didn't want to go too much past 30. Now, what do we like to do here? Well, so for Manchester United, and for most, well, what you'd want to do is you'd want to assess Manchester United versus West Ham. You might just want to start saying, a couple 4-4-2 setups is probably fine. Now, the way that the decks are set up here, when you get them, the defenders are at the front of the list. Then you go to your forwards. There's Zlatan from Sweden, and Martial, and Marcus Rashford, some forward, Wayne Rooney, legendary. And then you get your midfielders, and at the very end are your goalkeepers. So the goalkeeper in this case is going to be David De Gea. And so it's going to be kind of tough for me to, I don't know how much more I can zoom. I guess I can zoom out some. I really like to set it up like we would a team. Daley Blind is probably the left back. We will have Phil Jones as one of the center halves. We'll throw Luke Shaw out to the right. He may be another left defender. I don't 100% recall. And who else do we... another way you can kind of tell, I would say, although these guys all have a defensive rating, so you can see there next to defender it says 8. They all have a defensive rating of 8. So they're all relatively good in defense. I would say your wide defenders are probably the ones that have a little bit less of a rating. Maybe slightly higher offensive rating, but that can also, the offensive rating, which is right below the position, it's also somewhat indicative of how they are in the box, maybe on a header. So let's put Chris Smalling. This guy is a guy that's been around the Red Devils for quite a while. So this is going to be our back line for this game. Whether or not Smalling is a guy who started much, I'm not sure, but we'll make it that. So then we're going to have a 4-man midfield. Let's go to the back and we'll pick some midfielders now. The World Cup winning French team, Paul Pogba, more of a grinding box-to-box midfielder. We might want a more a more offensive-minded to pair with him, which would be Juan Mata. So, but Pogba does have some offensive, so that's why I'm saying I would say he's box to box. He's good with defense, rated 7, but also has an offensive ability here. If you look up 20, so. And then you got wide midfielders. We could put Antonio Valencia, formerly a right back, but it looks like, at least in this game, they're rating him as a wide midfielder, so we will use him there. And then we've got some other guys, and we will take a look through here. And we could use Fellaini, Carrick, Mkhitaryan. We'll throw Ashley Young out there on the left. So he's a wide midfielder. You've got a lot of choices here, but could go with Sergio Romero, the Argentine keeper, instead of De Gea. I think we will stick with De Gea at this point. And now we need 2 forwards. I think we will have Zlatan, and we'll throw Wayne Rooney out there just for the sake of that. So that's going to be our team, 4-4-2 with De Gea. Okay, so how do we set up the team? So in APBA, the way you have to set up your team on the sheet is you take the offensive rating. So I showed you Pogba, who's a 20. You don't set up the team by their position. You set it up by their offensive rating. And so Paul Pogba, if you look through here, he is the highest rated offensive guy. He will be first, followed by Zlatan, who is listed as a 19. And so they're going to be pretty strong. I'm going to put these two right at the top. And this is how I end up putting them out here, but I put them off to the side when I set up my game. The next would be a 9, which is Wayne Rooney, the other forward. And then you have an 8 for Juan Mata, more of an offensive-minded midfielder, playmaker. And then after 8, you have a 3, a couple 3s, a 2. So what I end up doing, so Daley Blind is a 3, Valencia is a 3. I take the midfielder first in the list, so I'm gonna have to turn it a little bit here so you can see where Antonio Valencia is here down at the bottom of my table. I'm kind of running out of room, but this is how I set it up. I put those in a line, and then I do the second 5 in the same way. Since they're the home team, I'm going to do it in this direction. So Blind, the number 3, a second number 3, will be player 6 on the chart. So 1, 2, 3. You can't see him. You can see him 4, but you can't see Antonio Valencia. That's 5. 6 for Blind, and then 7 will be Ashley Young, who's a 2 midfielder, and then Chris Smalling is a 2 center back. And then we get down to 1s for Phil Jones and Luke Shaw. I'm going to put Shaw earlier because he's a fullback, potentially more involved in offense than a defender like Phil Jones. And then De Gea will go here on the far left. He will be the goalie. And what I would do is I'd take these and shove them all to the side. Now, what am I going to do from here? So this chart, what you would do is you would write it in from the top. So it'll be Pogba first. I do not have a spot to mark down where what the position of the player is, but it's not really that important. So then you would just go down through here. Ibrahimovic, Rooney, Mata, Valencia, Blind, Young, Smalling, Shaw, and Jones. And your keeper would be De Gea. And then what they want you to do in APBA, and it seems to be, it's slightly awkward because you have to spend time counting usually. What you could do is you could rank them up front, or you can just put the numbers in. And I tend to just put the numbers in at this point, but you see here in this section says ratings. I'll lift it up here so you can see it. Ratings. So every player gets a rating for their propensity to commit fouls, to be fouled upon. That's a foul suffered rating. Assists, and injury rating. So what they want you to do is to write these ratings down. And so for Pogba, it's 5, 6, 4, 8. So injuries, 0, you don't get injured that much. You could go up as high as in the 30s, I believe, and that would be a more devastating injury. So Ibrahimovic is 5'2", 5'10". Rooney 2'1", 5'12". Hate to put you through this, but it's just going to take me a second here. 1, 2, 3, 12. For Mata, Valencia 3'2", 3'10". Blinn 2'2", 2'14". 2'2", 14". Young is 2'3", 125. So he's pretty likely to get injured if he has that opportunity. 1'1", 1 and 19 for Smalling. Shaw 2'1", 126. And 1'2", 0'19 for Jones. And then De Gea, where he has an injury 3. You don't usually see many of the foul ratings for the goalkeepers, at least as far as I've known. So that's how you set this up. Now, the rest of this sheet, just to show you real quick, I have a place to put in so in soccer you're only allowed 3 substitutes in the game per team. So you want to make sure that now sometimes someone will get injured and you have to bring them out immediately. That's when you would just fill in and what I've done is I usually just put the player in here under the player who's coming out and his ratings and when he comes in, sub, and I put him in the same spot. Or no, I don't. You then have to rank him in terms of offense. I just do it in the list here. I don't ever look at this sheet in terms of where a guy ranks as far as if I roll, and it's supposed to be the 10th rated player offensively. He would be down here in the 10 spot. I would look at the card rather than look at the sheet, so that really doesn't mess me up at all. But what this does is it gives you some space to put down little tick marks for goals, assists, shots on goal, shots that miss the target. I started doing shots and shots on goal in 2 different things, and then I realized I was duplicating. I had to do for a shot on goal. I also had to do a shot. I just figured I would do shots on goal and missed, and then the fouls that the player committed, the fouls that the player suffered, and then any yellow cards or red cards I write down in the column there, the time, the minute that they occurred in, and at the bottom I have a place to total it up. I also didn't mention right here you can write down the starting formation if you want. And then scoring summary here for each team, home and away, injuries, a place to write those down. If you're going to be playing a project, you'd be interested to have make notes of that in case you need to keep a player out for multiple games. And then the stats for the keeper, I don't know if that's really that important, but so that's where that stands, and we are at 29 minutes. A couple of little things. So again, the big chart is big, and so I've boiled it down into this, and I've had to make a couple of little notes at the bottom as well. But this gets maybe 90% of what you would roll. Actually, almost all the gameplay comes off of this chart here. The defensive chances, the loose ball chances. I have a chart here for kickoffs, indirect kicks, and throw-ins. The direct kicks have a different chart here. So if the goalkeeper has to make a save, it's off this chart, and then we've got some other goalkeeper-related things here. If they outlet it to a teammate up the field, this is the zone that it goes to a goal kick, which zone that goes to. These charts here, except this one, these charts here all go off of an addition, the sum of the 2 D6s. These are the sequential red first, white second. And then I have a little chart here for when you do get a shot on goal, or no, when you get a shot You adjust by the area. Also, the player who passed to the guy taking the shot, you can give them an advantage. And I'm going to have to show you this in another video, what those all mean. It's pretty straightforward once you learn it. And then the other thing that's kind of my setup here is that I have these that I've made up. And I'm going to get over top of my phone so I can look at this. So these are the tactics charts that are boiled down into so in this case a 4-3-3 against a 4-5-1. And what I like to do is I like to set this up right behind the team. Now I'd want a 4-4-2 against whatever I chose for West Ham. I'd probably give them a 4-5-1. I don't think they're probably not quite as offensively minded, so they may be trying to be a little bit coy with the Red Devils. But the Hammers, you never know. I mean, I have to look through their cards and see, maybe they would be willing to try and make a go at it. But so I have this up there. I was putting them into and where did I put them? Over here. I had it in a chart like this, which is kind of like how they come in the book. But the trouble with that is you start reading off the wrong chart. So I really boiled it down into one single chart for each team. So when when I get that chart up there, all I have to do is I look behind the team and see that the player's card says, oh, it's a 20 in zone B. So a 20 in zone B is going to be a B2. So it'll stay in zone B, but it will go to player 2 in the offensive chart. So like Zlatan would then get the ball, and that would tick off the time. But like I said, we're going to do another video, maybe here in the maybe later this afternoon, that details more of the gameplay. So that's where it stands for now. I'll probably set up West Ham after this, and then maybe try to show you some gameplay. Again, this is a very space-intensive game. You're going to need to have all the player cards in front of you, because if you look at these player cards here, like Rooney, you're going to roll 2d6s, and you're going to have to find what the number is on there and take it to the chart. So you need to have all that information. And so yeah, we'll be back here in a little while. So hopefully this is helpful to get you started and to see sort of an overview of what you might do to set up a game here in APBA Soccer. And a little later, we'll show you the actual carrying out, at least of the first maybe 10 minutes or so of this game, as this is just a friendly. But and then maybe I'll do another video where I try to play out the rest of it in a more concerted fashion. So let me know if you like this, if this is going to be helpful to you. If not, the other thing you can do, so this is if you're just going to try and wing it as far as your formations and your team selection. Also, not to forget, you would also probably select a backup goalkeeper and 6 other players, because it's usually 7 subs that you can carry on the bench into any one game, and you can select 3 to sub in. But this is if you were just going to do a sort of an off-the-cuff team selection. There are sites like WhoScored.com and Football-lineups.com that give you pretty good historical data as far as lineups that were used in games and tactics, formations, and stuff. So there's that. But anyway, we'll be back with some of this game and to show you some of the mechanics behind the game. Till then, keep rolling and enjoy your tabletop sports.